over the course of the last 15 years that has brought me to the place that I am. And in the place that I'm in, I can see a lot of shit. And when I think back on what it is that I had to go through to get to the point where I can see what I can see, I was a lot of pain, a lot of learning, a lot of very uncomfortable and unpleasant shit. Some of it just got forced upon me, and others I had to drudge down it whether I wanted to or not. Considering what I would consider to be the current state of consciousness and possibly even awareness of the vast majority of the population of the planet, short of some miracle taking place or the hunter's monkey being a real thing, I just don't think that humanity is in a place where they're currently, in their current state, capable of understanding the reality, capable of understanding the actual severity or the gravity of what's truly going on, what's been going on, what the global agenda is, what it looks like. It's a lot for people to process. It's a lot for me to process knowing what I do. So I'm just monologuing here my thoughts on whether or not humanity's going to snap the hell out of it. When you start to really calculate all the things that you know, they've been working on our minds, they've been working on our consciousness, they've been working on traumatizing the shit out of all of our respective cultures, the children and all that other stuff. They've been working on dumbing us down, chemically lobotomizing us all, and so many other things that we have everything working against us. Pain causes humans to ask questions that they never did. Pain causes a lot of the things that give rise to asking questions that you did not before, which gives rise to critical thinking, thinking for yourself. There's a process that goes on. And I think that unless or until someone experiences enough pain, in most cases, not all, can't say this is a blanket statement because every being is different, but I think for the most part, considering the state of consciousness and awareness that most people are in, they'll have to experience enough pain that drives their mind into a place of beginning to ask questions that they never have asked before, which will ultimately, and hopefully it should anyway, give rise to critical thought and independent thought, as that process of beginning to ask, why is this so painful and I got to find the answers, gives birth to that stuff. And then the more logic and deductive reasoning, critical and independent thought kick in, that then gives birth. Then the mind, the being, is fertile enough for the consciousness to be able to expand to whatever degree it will as that happens. And then once that consciousness expansion takes place, that, I believe, gives birth to the insatiable appetite within the human being to begin to seek the truth and to begin to find the truth for themselves. Without that process taking place, personally, with whatever it is that I do know and what it is that I do see, I don't see humanity breaking away from this process that the world is getting ready to going through, unless or until this process that I've just outlined unfolds or takes place for the vast majority of most people. It seems like one has to happen to beget the other. One can't happen without the other one preceding it. So, unless or until people experience enough pain, whatever that pain experience is that drives their mind into beginning to now ask new questions, that begins to give rise or birth to the critical thought process, to the independent thought process, and hopefully logic and reason. And with those faculties functioning, and when you begin to work and strengthen those aspects of your being, does the soil of your being, the soil of your mind, become fertile enough for the consciousness to expand, enough to give rise or to give birth to the hunger within the human to find the truth for themselves. I don't know how the 100th monkey will alleviate or get around that process that seems like it's going to need to take place for most humans. But the 100th monkey being one of those, I don't want to say magical things, but one of those spiritual kind of things that most people are even unaware of. So I don't know what all plays out in that process. And I just don't know what kind of a miracle could take place that would fill in all the gaps and provide all of the growth that's necessary in what I've outlined to take place in the human being, to get them to a point where they can comprehend and see the gravity of this and understand the nature of what's going on and be able to, with their own eyeballs, through their own perspective, see who the enemy is and become sickened enough and enraged enough to be willing to act, to do something about it. And if that begins to spread across the planet, then we have a snowball's chance in hell that humanity can have the immune system response that's necessary to the psychopaths and all those that are working for them that rule this world or are ruling and controlling and doing what they're doing to the world. I mean, it's all happening. It's still going on. It's all in our faces, right under our noses, and people still aren't getting it yet. My conclusion is that people still aren't in enough pain, and perhaps they're still in a state of cognitive dissonance where they have the version of reality that they believed for so long still in their mind, and then this new version that's been birthed in their minds for those that are capable of even seeing it for what it is on any level, and then they're wrestling with what they're now experiencing and seeing because of the obviousness of it beating them upon the head versus their version of the reality that they always thought was there. Cognitive dissonance is a bitch. I've been there. I've been deep in the throes of the cognitive dissonance with other things, so I know that when you're there, it's a quicksand pit for sure, until you can mentally reconcile in your head the truth of the reality you live in and fully release the old version of reality that you adhere to for, well, all your life in most cases. And when you combine with that as just yet another example of what needs to happen and what we're facing as a collective on the planet. And it's not for all millennials, but I'd say at least 70%. Look at the condition that they're in. They're lacking so much foundational knowledge and understanding of the world they live in, and so much growth and maturation to be able to process and understand the world they live in, who runs it, and the position that we're in, to be willing to put down the video games, the cartoons, long enough to take in the information that they would need to begin to crack open their mind. And you got a whole generation of people that are as apathetic as it gets. It seems like half of them are okay with America falling and becoming more socialistic, because all of the millennials' lives, for most of them, they've been taken care of by mommy and daddy, and life's been real easy. So once you get into your early to mid 30s, your 30s, and life's been that easy for you, it's going to be hard for you to imagine life in an independent way. So as communism comes down the road, as socialism comes down the road, and you want to be a lazy little bitch, oh, it'll be easy to roll over like a submitting dog. I see that condition in a lot of the millennials, and I don't know what's going to break them out of it, if anything, because the conditioning and the indoctrination and the brainwashing of their minds has been going on so long, and it's gotten in their subconscious so deeply that unless there's some active divinity, I don't know what's going to wake up the entirety of that generation. And when you think about the communist agenda, when you think about the subversion and how that works and how they work generation by generation to get one generation fully disconnected, they've got it. They've got it. And if it's not the millennials, then they've certainly gotten it with the Z-Gen, who are the up-and-comers. They're not quite at the age of fighting males, but when you look at what's been done to the X-Gen, I'm sorry, the millennials gen, it's been significant. Unless something out of this world happens, I don't know what the right phrasing is, everything's going to change, because there's psychopaths that rule the world. When you really sit with that, it's so offensive that everything's going to change in the most repugnant of ways to a totalitarian technocracy, blah, 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 those fancy words, that's going to create a world that virtually nobody on this planet would want to live in if they actually knew what was coming down the road. Yet you can't get people to snap out of it. I'm looking out of my house and watching two people walk 6 feet away from each other as they're walking down the road. Just like so many people's minds are so far gone, they're so programmed, they're in such a sheep-like state, and we've all been so separated from the history of our own goddamn nations and what it is that provided us the freedoms that we at least thought we had, that our younger generations don't have that foundational information that would give them the inspiration to be willing to fight for what it is we're all about to have taken from us, like, well, I guess like candy from a baby, because nobody's done any fighting yet, and it's been almost 3 solid months. I mean, you got to ask yourself, how bad is it really going to have to get? And since there's been no action now, and it's been 3 months, and it put everybody in the small to medium businesses out of work, they've put everybody that runs those businesses at jeopardy, they've decimated the global economy, all the stuff they've done, and it still isn't getting people motivated. So if all that has happened, if all that has already happened has obviously taken place, and it hasn't motivated humans to get off their asses and rebel, that the gauge or the meter of, or for threshold of pain that they're going to have to endure before they're willing to do anything, oh, that bar's been set really, really fucking high. And it pisses me off that the rest of us are going to have to suffer because of this shit. Because if the world doesn't wake up to this shit, we don't have a fighting chance as a species. I mean, and what are the odds that some of us would be awake enough to see that, the gods don't want us to have a fighting chance, and they intend to reduce our numbers and minimize us. And because it's an agenda from way up on high, so to speak, well, there's nothing us little people can do about it. And if the gods are at play, and the gods know enough about the magical sciences and all the stuff, well, isn't it something that within the realm of what they would be able to do, is to put the whole world into a trance, to make it so that when people like me speak to the average person in the world, my words sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. When I talk to them, it's just like wah, 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 wah. It's like something's being done to people to make it so that when those of us that do see what's going on speak to them, our words get muddled. I don't know enough about magic to be able to break that curse, and if I did, how if you do it on a planetary scale? And even if there was a curse, let's just say I could snap my fingers and make it all go away, then you still have to drudge through all the goddamn brainwashing and variances in people's perception and understanding of all of this. Who they are, what government is, what they're doing. Lucifer, Baal, Moloch, the Anunnaki, demon aliens, I don't know, but something along those lines. Anybody that's watching this and knows what's up, knows they're working for something that's definitely the poster child for the dark side. And when you're in a world where you can't get through to your own goddamn kind because they're distrustful of you for whatever reason, the way you look, the way you talk, or whatever other thing it is that causes them to judge the source or the messenger, so you can't even get through to them, you can't even get them to consider what you're saying, because rather than consider it, their mind tells them they should consider you a kook, a quackpot, a quack, a whack job. Like, what kind of crazy clown world shit is this? Like, seriously, think about that. Sanity Twilight Zone, it is that. Well, you can't even get through to members of your own species. for any number of reasons relevant to their mind, their perception, possibly this mass and spell, ignorance, ego, apathy. Throw all that in a blender. Probably what's working against all of us that are trying to wake people up. And at this stage of the game, when throughout the last however long it is you've been waking up, for me it's been 15 years, when it's pushed family away, when it's pushed friends away, when it's pushed loved ones away, girlfriends, whatever it may be, and you've had enough people leave your life because it almost makes it hard even now to want to make it, to push even harder. And I look at it like this in many respects. If people aren't going to wake up, and this is the world that's going to unfold, what's the point of being here? Why would I want to be here? Why would any of us want to be in the world that these clearly are building and constructing for us if we don't do something about it? It's like, just sitting with that, like, think of the world. So unless something comes to the rescue, because we're like such a joke of a species, or some version of benevolent gods, deities, aliens, or universe energy zaps humans, and coronal mass ejection, mass coronoid, or whatever it is, from the sun that sends some energy this way that cosmically bitch slaps everybody into waking up. Unless something like that happens, I really don't see this ending well for us. As much as I would love for it to end well for us, as much as I would love for humanity to wake up now, I just don't see it happening. And it's really, really disappointing because I know the potential that lies within the race of man. I also know how much the race of man has been perverted. I just don't know why something has sought to spend so much of its time. Its entire purpose for existing seems to have been, for a very long time, the consistent, methodical, systematic perversion of the race of man, in as much as it could accomplish throughout generation after generation after generation. Further working, its whole existence is working towards, like, its point of being is simply to degrade the race of humans, degrade the race of man to a point of, what, mutually assured destruction, or total enslavement of their minds and their being. It's like, it's absurd on such a grotesque level. It's infuriating. All the words that I have to describe it are only the tip of all the tip of icebergs for each one of them, for how I actually feel about how disgusting and ridiculous this shit is. And none of us know where these people are that are doing this. None of us know how to find them. Even if we did, they all run with security. They all run with trained pack dogs, attack dogs that are former military that'll be all fucking happy to kill you because their masters paying them a big fucking fee, and for whatever reason, and they're killing you, or at least trying to. They won't even know the pedophile or the demon worshiper that they're defending themselves. It's just like, it's sick that the people on this planet are in the state that they're in. It's so fucking disgusting. And I know that evil has been working on us for at least 7,000 years, that, we have a recorded history, and nothing helps if we are that pathetic of a race that we need to be guided and taught and led like good-looking sheep. Where is whatever's supposed to be doing that? It's like it left us all, it's like, fuck you guys, and just left the evil to run ramshackle on the planet. And what did we do to deserve this? I don't understand what it is that humans did that made us such an attractive species, freaking evil of this universe, or at least the evil that envelops and that has been rampant upon the whole of the earth, if you understand the fact that the child molestation and killing and sacrifice has been around for thousands and thousands of years. That's pure unadulterated evil having its way with the human species so much it's eating up our children, and then the ones that it's not eating up, it's working diligently to utterly pervert their minds in as much as possible. What would create a world like this? And how is it that people believe that there's a loving God, wherever they believe that loving God is, that's watching this happen, that won't interject and help to correct things? It'll just sit there in disgust of the human species while its evil that it put here perverts the shit out of us, and rather than come down here and help, rather than teach us, rather than do any meaningful thing, it'll probably just wipe us all the fuck out. Something like that. Yay! And you gotta wonder, why were we created? What was the purpose of all this? What's the purpose of all that? I don't see a real purpose to it, other than we're good little batteries, like Morpheus says. We're good little sources of energy, food. And, well, this batch, some of them happen to be conscious. Most of them aren't. Most of them are herd animals. We got a few in there that happen to be conscious. Well, they're gonna, they'll go too. It doesn't matter. Something like that. And clearly, none of us are Neo. Nothing's coming to yank us out, fix us up, make us right, so that we can come and, do battle with the Matrix and help save the world. Any of that kind of ridiculous shit. None of that's happening. Jesus isn't coming. The aliens aren't coming, at least to save us, so to speak. So what do? We just get to sit here and watch this slow motion fucking train wreck from hell.